Right. And now to begin with the Church of Light opening ritual. Eternal brothers and sisters, we are now about to open the Church of Light meeting in a customary manner. And in so doing, let us consider seriously the purpose of which we have gathered together. The purpose which, since the dawn of human intelligence, has drawn true brothers and sisters of the light into holy convocation. The purpose which during all ages has attracted the spiritual efflorescence of every epoch together at selected meeting places. The purpose which has ever impelled the noblest and most exalted souls of earth to band together for common effort. The purpose is to study nature's laws, to unfold the divine attributes of the soul, to secure conscious immortality, and to attain the royal grandeur that surrounds the true perfected human. As has been the custom for eons past, let us arise and face the east, from whence each day the sun first sheds his all-illuminating rays upon the children of the earth, and bear in mind that even as all energy, light, and warmth upon the earth that derive from the solar father, so in truth all life, light, and love known to man are derived from God, the spiritual Father, whose all-providing care was symbolized in the minds of the ancient brothers and sisters by the orb of day. Let us now make the symbol of the religion of the stars. We stand to indicate active volition with right hand raised to heaven in aspiration to divine knowledge and power, and the left hand extended to earth as a pledge that such knowledge and power will be used only in spirit and in truth for the benefit of humanity. You may lower your hands and I will pronounce the invocation. O thou eternal spirit, in whom we live, move, breathe, and have our being, consecrate this meeting of the cause of truth and righteousness. As brothers and sisters of the light, we seek knowledge at the shrine of goodness. Therefore, by virtue of our unselfishness and sincerity in desiring to assist in thy works, we ask the help of the legions of light and their protection from all forces of darkness. So shall it be.
All right. Thank you, Vega.
And here is Ellen with your next class.
All right. So thank you all for taking time on your weekend. I know this is a time of family, and it's often hard for people to get away and participate in activities like this. But I believe that it is important, and your presence is important, and you're meant to be here. That's the exciting thing about having a group like this, where we can examine some of the information relating to the coursework of the Church of Light, and to kind of go through and fellowship, and also discuss those items that we feel are important. The summary of today's activities, as you see on the screen, is pretty much we're going to have a group work activity. We're going to talk about the key concepts, of course, number 2, and matters to consider. Also, and this is, I think, extremely important, what items could be a distraction, and what to focus on, and what things to not put as much effort on. And then we'll have a closing ceremony and Q&A. I will have to leave at about 90 minutes in. So usually I stay until the last dog is dead, but at this point I might have some other commitments that I need to take care of. Anything before we begin? All right, so let's move forward. Part of the reason for this course study is not necessarily to help you pass the test. In the student section on the Church of Light website, on light.org, there's a study guide that's outstanding and excellent. But the purpose of this is to help you in terms of not only your understanding and going through the materials in each course, but also when you have completed all 21 courses, to see how they can be more applicable as a unit. And as we discussed last month, the secret of the onion is that the onion has many layers. At the heart of the onion is the seed itself. One way to view these courses is that the course in its entirety is like an onion. And as we peel away the layers, we come to more information, more knowledge, more understanding, hopefully even more wisdom. When we get to completion and we get to the seed that is at the heart of the onion, at that point, we have an opportunity to begin our journey of growth. Not to say that the journey doesn't begin as soon as we commence our studies, but as you have the information and the commensurate experience that this coursework offers you through both the books themselves and the supplemental materials that come after the passage of each section, it's exciting to see the possibilities and what can happen. So in light of that, what I would like to do is to have Vega divide us up into groups of 5 or 6. So it looks like there are 26, so maybe five groups. And as a group, I would like you to list the areas of importance for this second course. Designate a leader to report back to the main group, and you'll have 10 minutes to complete the task. But if you get done earlier, come on back. And what we'll do is we will talk about what you see as important, and then we'll talk about the process of why doing this group activity is significant in your studies. So Vega, are you ready to go? So go ahead and join.
I gotta find me. Oh, maybe I'm not in it. So in room 1, I have Paul Johnson, who's not joined, and Sean Baylor. Hi guys, everything going okay?
Let's see. Wait. Hello. Hello. Hello, is this the room with Rao?
Hello? Hello? Hey there. I'm going to have to leave because my internet's not working.
Hello.
Breakout rooms will close in 53 seconds.
We're back.
Hi there.
Did we have 5 or 6 groups?
You got 15 seconds before they'll all be back.
All right. Did we have 5 or 6 groups, Vega?
We had just 5.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think we pretty much have everyone back. Vega, who is in group number 1 that we can call upon?
Yes.
Group number 1, Kate Paul Johnson, Matthew Christian, Michael John Young, excuse me, and I had asked Paul to speak.
All right. Who would like to speak for the group of what you all found significant or important?
I will be the speaker as designated by Vega, but as I was telling everybody, it's been many years since I read the book, but we were at all different stages and interests. The main focuses that I identified and that we then discussed were astrology and tarot as the two keys, symbolism and correspondences, and as above, so below as the rationale for why astrology and tarot are significant. And then the third thing is a real focus on what's true and false about reincarnation. And then we all sort of went into why everybody was interested in all of those subjects with different emphases and backgrounds.
Right. Great. Excellent. Group number 2.
Debbie Yaffe, I had designated as the speaker, but there's Debbie Yaffe, James Klusinski, Nancy Murdoch, and Vanessa Brown.
And Deborah passed the task to me. This is Vanessa Brown.
Pass the
Hi,
baton.
Vanessa Brown.
Hello, Vega. We basically said exactly what Paul just talked about. We also discussed a little bit the fact that the Facts and Fancies, the 2 chapters on reincarnation, Facts and Fancies on reincarnation, are more details, or they reinforce the mission of the soul, and certainly the 9 with the astrological principles, the 9-point plan on why we're here and how we are to go about accomplishing what we need to do.
Excellent. Group number 3.
June Collier I talked to, but Erin Turetsky is in there, Chelsea Hessel, Lenore Janis, RJ, and Yvonne. Not even going to pretend I can say that last name.
One of those magic words. You have to be able to speak it.
Good luck with that. So, are you?
Okay.
Yvonne was our
June?
leader, so I'll let her
June?
go ahead.
I was trying to lead. I was lost. So anyway, it seems that many in our group are very, very interested in this book. They have not maybe gotten to the book yet, or they're really wanting to review it again in consideration that it's a very important book to this course of study. We didn't hear from everyone. There was a couple that did not unmute or add to our discussion, but we have very good interest in learning and memorizing the zodiac and the mundane houses. The houses seem to throw people off as to their understanding of their anyway, it's beyond seems to be beyond a little bit of understanding just the signs and planets. And also that the mission of the soul is very important to us.
Very good.
Understanding that better.
Totally agree. Thank you. How about our next group?
Room 4 had Doc Cummings, Marianne Falcon, and Peg Josher in it. I had more, but I don't know what happened to that. One of you guys want to speak up? Maybe.
Okay, we elected Lynn as our leader, but she's a little bit shy. So I'll give a recap. We kind of thought that the first few chapters, given the planets, the signs, and the houses, was a great introduction into astrology. It gets our feet wet. It gets us to realize that There is a science behind it, and it's not something that is just a hokey piece of psychic stuff that people put out. No, it's real, and if you follow the science and you follow the charts, you'll find out a lot more about yourself even. And that's the key. As you start learning this, you start to learn more about yourself too. And as you learn about yourself, you realize there is more to this. We went into the facts and fancies of reincarnation, and some of us aren't sure whether to accept that fully or to question it more, or to wait for more evidence. And then we went into the Egyptian initiation, and it does go into the two keys, how astrology and the tarot relates together. And the big part about the Egyptian initiation is that it puts you in line with learning everything about astrology and everything about the tarot, the silver and golden keys, which you're going to learn throughout the rest of the books. So that's it.
Excellent. And the last group.
You were in it, Anne-Marie and Jody, Mr. Whitley, and Susan Lusos.
I think Susan's going to share.
Okay, we basically discussed the elements. That was our great interest, and the transmutation of them. That was the elementary constituents and the spiritual alchemy basics of how that all works. We were interested in that in particular.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you all. The importance of doing these types of activities is really about understanding the key concepts, but also to understand that different areas will light up and enlighten different people. The importance of reading these books and rereading these books cannot be overemphasized. What you will find is that as you progress, there will be references back to book 2 particularly, but references to all the different books. And so the topics that I would like to cover in the few minutes that we have together are the golden and silver keys, the zodiac houses and aspects, the cycle of necessity in 9 points, and then briefly about reincarnation. There are other areas that play into this, but I kind of want to make a distinction. There is a difference between experience and knowledge. And I believe this book introduces that very, very well, and in a way that that you will see played out through the rest of these courses. First of all, in terms of experience, the golden keys not only represent locks to the inner and outer chambers of King Solomon's temple, or in other traditions, similar types of arrangements, but it also represents a journey. And that journey is your personal journey. In many initiatic societies, be that Freemasonry, be that what we do and others, the initiate imparts and goes through and reenacts a sequence of events. That sequence of events is the journey of the application of knowledge and the incorporation of that knowledge into your practical life and experience. Now, knowledge itself can be had without the realm of experience. But as we were talking about prior to starting this class, is that when you have experience but no knowledge, or you have knowledge and no experience, that in most cases you will lack wisdom and be subject to the temptation of extremism. We've seen this within the world of astrology throughout the centuries, where people will make all kinds of claims, all kinds of proposals, and also of taking just experience without knowledge and going down rabbit holes concerning that. The thing that differentiates the Church of Light and the Fellowship of Light in the way that we approach the use of astrology and of the tarot is that they represent astral influences, or shall we say cosmic influences, upon the life of individuals, groups, and situations. Does that mean that they predict with absolute certainty events? No. And as we will learn in later courses and have reinforced, these are the tendencies and like the tides of the ocean that push and pull. Without some type of other intervention that we will learn later on, the likelihood of the outcome, as shown in the natal, the progressed chart, or in using the tarot, are very likely, but they're not assured. A good example of that is playing out now, in that I don't remember seeing any astrologer that didn't predict that Trump would win. And yet we'll see how that all turns out. But right now it's looking like that is not going to be true. There are intervening events and occurrences that can alter the flow and present many different outcomes. Also, in terms of experience, it's important to know the surroundings around you. Tomorrow is the beginning of a new moon cycle. One of the recommendations that is made is that we spend that 29 plus days on one course at a minimum to be able to integrate the knowledge and apply the experience in our lives. Knowing these cycles are really important. Also, to get some idea, we're looking not just at one thing, such as a lunar cycle, or the natal aspects, or the progressed aspects. We're looking for a combination and the culmination of all these brought together. So while it is usually recommended to look at beginning any new thing at a new moon, not to start it after a full moon, that's not always true, but it tends to be something to take into consideration. Also, right now, we are at a very low sun cycle, sunspot cycle. We know that there have been effects of when the atmosphere is not charged, that the penetration of cosmic radiation brings about changes both in our weather as well as in individuals. In the last week, you may have found yourself or see others being highly agitated. That is the result of, or at least a huge influence brought about by the impact of cosmic radiation due to a weakened radiation belt around our Earth, as well as the lack of sunspots to charge. Any extreme or deficit of sunspots has an impact. There are also two divisions that are necessary for wisdom, as we've talked about. That division of having life experience that is incorporating that knowledge, as well as having knowledge that is applied to. So the idea of the silver key and the gold key are, if you will, facilitating unlocking doors of your experience. In almost every book moving forward, you will see a representation of information that talks about your journey, that encourages your journey, that compels you to have a journey, as well as the incorporation of information. It is of the utmost importance that you continue to look to incorporating that knowledge into your experience. One of the questions within our group also was, what about the supplemental readings or the extras that come after you pass a test? Almost all of those are geared toward the experiential part and the application of knowledge to foster wisdom. And while we won't talk about those because some people may not have gone through the coursework yet, I highly encourage you to study those as they come and to make the effort to apply the application. Again, the initiate's journey is represented in the inner and outer chambers of King Solomon's temple per our understanding. And as you move if you've seen representations within the Jewish or Christian traditions or with other initiatic societies, it sometimes represents almost a circular motion, and you go through chambers and you pass through doors. Some of them are guarded, some of them may not be as closely guarded. Or you may have to use a key to unlock and open that door, hence the application of either the tarot or the use of astrology. But it is an exploration of self and understanding that these cosmic influences do have an impact on people, places, and things. I will warn you, though, that as you begin book 2 and as you progress through book 2, one of the major options is taken away. You can no longer say, after you're moving forward from this book, that you didn't know. As you progress through, more and more, you're also held accountable personally, and shall we say, involvement in the group. You're held accountable for understanding your actions, reactions, and the actions of others, because you have the ability to understand the forces that are impacting. For those of you who are Matrix fans, it's like taking that blue pill or the red pill. You make a choice, but as you choose to go forward, the insight more than offsets the risk and the fear. And I tell you, sometimes the journey is scary, only because when you see things or start to understand things, it isn't always necessarily a pleasant situation. Yeah, I don't think too many people argue with that, but it offers you the assurance that, just like COVID, that there are beginnings and endings. And as we transmute into that next level of existence, we can look back and gain from these experiences and move forward. So here is that, the gold and silver representing the integration of knowledge through experience into wisdom. The zodiac houses and planets, and again, planets, or you can say astral bodies, as the sun and the moon are really not a planet. There's a need and a heavy emphasis, and a mistake I made is I did not memorize this information. Another reason why I needed at least 29 days, probably a whole heck of a lot more. Starting on page 35, understanding what those signs and the associated key words are memory reinforcers to when you get into, for instance, course 10, and you start applying and using these to come to an understanding. You will build upon this all the way through. There's also some people had some issues with houses and their areas of impact. And the houses are very specific to the particular chart that you're casting at that time. Two people may find that their aspects, their signs, and their planets are in different houses, depending upon the situation for the chart that they're putting together. The houses themselves represent those areas of impact. And again, I strongly encourage a committal to memorization of these areas. And then on page 58, it's just briefly mentioned the importance of and differences of the various aspects that are formed between these astral bodies. This is something that will be greatly reinforced and explained and expanded in future works, but understanding the differences and the similarities between a conjunction and a parallel, how they're different, how they occur, why they occur. All of these, again, will be built out and will, shall we say, offer you a foundation that will continue to be able to help in your accumulation of wisdom. Any questions specifically related to the zodiac houses and planets at this point? Okay. We'll move on. The cycle of necessity and the 9-point plan. One thing that relates starting on page 73, which also ties into the concept of how the Church of Life views reincarnation, is an advancement from basic to more advanced. We do not believe in recycling per se. We're looking at that the essence of who and what life is, who you are, goes through stages and advances with each experience. And this is also very consistent with most initiatic organizations, is that you'll see not a do-over, not a second, third, or 100th try, but more of a foundational and a learning based upon the wisdom and experiences that you have. So take a look at page 73 and again, focus on how that can be applied in your life and looking then at the situations, both positive, or shall we say constructive, and not so and destructive, and how the lessons that can be learned from this and applied so that again our transition to that next stage can be as productive as possible. Also, starting on page 92, there's a 9-point plan that you will see reinforced later on, but it is fundamental and foundational as well in terms of the things that all people should be able to understand, explain, and, if you will, incorporate into their lives. And the first one, obviously, is the fact of astrology. While many will still discount, especially within the scientific community, the evidential basis of what astrology can and what it does do, and even what it doesn't do, I think is becoming less and less debated by those who take the time to look at it. I know in an academic setting, I've had opportunities to have exchanges with others in my college, and they all will say, well, no, it's fully discounted, but yet none have taken that personal look. The few that start to examine it, as well as the effects scientifically already shown of the effects of cosmic, or shall we say astral bodies upon individuals, groups, and places, then start understanding that there is a factual basis within astrology. Also, freedom from want. What do you think that means? Neil, what do you think freedom from want that is referred to means?
Well, basically having all your needs, your physical, mental, moral, spiritual needs met.
Yep, that's about as concise as it gets. Also, look at the time that this material was put together, from 1924 to 1928. What was occurring in the world at that time, Neil?
Well, that would, are you trying to date me?
Well, I know that you don't remember.
Well, that was the time of the Great Depression, of course.
Well, 1929. It's
Yeah,
prior to the Depression.
upheaval. Mhm.
Yeah. It was the Roaring 20s. And it was a time of, if you will say, egomania, a time of self-gratification, a time of focus on self rather than focus on others. Sound familiar? We are virtually repeating.
Alan,
Yes.
this is Peg. It
Yes.
was also a time of greed.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. We're virtually repeating the errors and the omissions of the Roaring 20s. You're absolutely right. The third one is kind of different. He starts the discussion on extrasensory perception, but not in the way that I think most people understand it. And I'm gonna postpone that one because there will be later more in-depth discussions about what ESP is and what it isn't. Again, even the US government has been engaged in things like remote viewing. and other types of activities that are encapsulated within the realm of ESP. Freedom from fear. Paul, what do you think? What's freedom from fear?
Well, knowing that it precedes induced emotion, I would say that that's a clue that we are able to respond to fearsome situations with a redirection of energy that can liberate us from just compulsive or instinctive responses and use our higher faculties to rise above the situation.
Very good. And also, I believe that, again, because we took, is it the blue pill or the red pill? Because we no longer have the excuse, we also have the ability to see what's coming. We may not fully comprehend it. We may not fully understand it. But as we progress in our spiritual journey, there should be fewer and fewer surprises. And that leads into that fact of an inducted emotion. Vega, what do you think that is?
Oh, that wonderful feeling when we're praying, that wonderful ability to reach the spirits.
Yep. We have more control. We have more effect. We have also increased responsibility to act and behave and to, in our dealings with others, in our dealings with ourselves, in a more constructive rather than destructive way. And we're given the tools to be able to do this. Jody, what do you think of freedom of expression? Where is he going with that? Yep, you're muted.
Okay, let's try this. Well, just off the top of my head, I mean, I think to be able to live in a world where, you know, I guess even in a democracy, we're supposed to have freedom of expression, but we really don't. I mean, and I think anybody should be free to express themselves as long as they're building up and not tearing down, as long as they're not hurting anybody else. I think we should feel free to, you know, to express ourselves in order so, you know, so we can keep evolving. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in the same cycle over and over again. We have to keep going. We need new ideas.
Yeah, I agree. You know, being in an academic setting right now, it's really interesting because there are those who wish to have their freedom to express, but do not wish to have you have freedom to express. And so it's really a two-way street. It's the ability to be able to explain your beliefs, as well as being open to listening to others, even those we disagree with. I believe, regardless of who ultimately wins the election, that there's going to be a great deal of healing that needs to happen within our country. And the freedom, if you will, to both receive and to give openly will be something that I think is going to be paramount. One of my favorite ones, direct facts of directed thinking. And there's going to be an enormous amount of material on this. Peg, what's that about? Peg, you there?
Sorry, you caught me working on something else.
Oh, distracted student. Okay.
I'm working on nervous stuff for Vega.
Yeah, blame her. That's okay. So what's directed thinking? Facts of directed thinking. Can you summarize
gosh,
that?
Don't pick on me today. My mind's somewhere else.
She gave you a great example.
So we need
that thought.
directed.
Pick on Yvonne.
Yep. So what's directed thinking?
No, don't pick on me.
It's where you direct your thoughts.
It is true.
Yeah, it's
though.
where you direct your thoughts. Thank you for defining using the word.
If we don't keep our thoughts directed, we can see the result of that. I think the world right now is a good demonstration of very, very confused thoughts everywhere. I mean, that's all I feel. I think about our country and I'm just like, oh my God, everybody is so confused right now.
Yeah.
And it plays out physically. And, you know, how do you move about? How do you keep your society get together when everybody is so confused? So directed thinking, I think, is very, very important.
Okay, I totally agree. Let me add another aspect of that. I see also directed thinking as being intentional thinking. Sometimes we just kind of go with the flow or it's random. Whereas if we want more cohesion in our society, if we want more acceptance and love, then we need to also act and think in accordance with that.
Yeah,
Thinking,
Alan, I would agree with that. I think I just reoriented my head. I think to me it's control.
yeah,
You're
being in
controlling
control of
your
yourself.
thoughts
Yeah,
and directing them in certain avenues or patterns.
right. When we get to spiritual alchemy and that course, this truly comes into play because that's taking and using the tools available to, if you will, stand against the tide of pressures and of influences that are coming. Let me tell you, that book was the hardest book to apply. And when we get to it, I think you'll see why. But this is just a hint of things to come, that and a promise in the sense that you can control your thinking. You do not have to be subject to everything that's happening around you.
Yeah. It's
Freedom
choosing your thoughts.
Yes, choosing your thoughts in a constructive way or a destructive way.
You don't like thinking or feeling about this one, pick another one.
Yeah, you don't like the outcome, choose again. Freedom of worship, this is something that is constitutionally guaranteed, but interestingly enough is not always uniformly practiced. We have prejudices, we see biases within our country, sometimes within ourselves. I'm teaching human development this session, and I was talking about by 6 years old, a child has pretty much developed their personality and have begun to absorb the biases and prejudices of their parents. Right now, there is, in many aspects, in many groups, a prejudice against people of Islamic faith, just categorizing everybody as a terrorist, which if you've studied or have been involved with that religious belief system, it's anything but that. Are there aspects of it? Heck, there's aspects of Christianity that are extremism as well. So the freedom to worship and to be able to worship. And the last one, I think, is a culmination of all of these. And that is that an intentional, and probably I should have put the word intentional in front of it, intentional contribution to universal welfare. Oh, let's see. Who can I pick on? Deborah? What's the contribution to universal welfare about?
Well, in order to, I think you have to step back and realize that there is a plan. We don't know what the plan is, but we know we have a part in it, and that everybody matters.
You're right.
And everything matters. This to me is the universal welfare is sort of the interdependent clause. Sort of all for one, one for all, and intentionally, working on developing your awareness that, everyone and everything, all living beings, all substances have a part to play, and to respect that, and to do your utmost to contribute to that, to be a good cosmic citizen.
I see it, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I see it as an active act of intentional behavior
Oh,
that we are charged, since we have this knowledge, and as we're gaining this knowledge, we are charged to do actions and activities that build up rather than tear down.
Exactly.
And in our world today, in our society today, that is going to be a huge challenge, and you will take heat for this. But yet, I believe also that's part of our responsibility, is that why are we taking time? Why is the leadership of the church here? Why am I here? Why, are any of us here? Is that we embody the giving and the building, not to instill fear, not to instill hatred, but to build up and to encourage others to not be afraid. And that freedom of fear and freedom from want. So these are just, I believe, if you will, this 9-point plan is, if you will, a plan to live by.
Yes. Alan,
Yes.
I wanted to say that I really liked your concept that last one, intentional contribution to universal welfare, is the culmination of the other ones. I like this concept because you kind of need those other ones to, we can always start where we are, and you always start with the intention. We always have an intention to help and to be of service. But sometimes we don't have enough wisdom, or fear makes us do crazy things, or we don't have the freedom of expression. Maybe we might be living somewhere where we can't help.
Right.
Most importantly, the directed thinking and induced emotion, we need the wisdom that comes out of this, the wisdom to be able to help and, to actually make our intention for help to be actually beneficial.
Right. And that's the importance of everyone being here today. And this is not by accident. We need each other. And as we embody these, we become stronger and are able to withstand the pressures and the influence that are just a part of life. So what's the distraction? One thing that concerns me is reincarnation. I found myself, and I've also seen students get so enraptured and involved with the definition and is it true, is it not true, that reincarnation becomes a distraction rather than an emphasis. And it's just important to remember that this is, in our way of teaching, that we look as a path of progress rather than a recycle program. We're looking to improve, not redo. We're seeking to move forward, not backwards or staying the same. And at that point, it's really, to me, a critical factor not to get hung up on it. There will be more discussions and more supplemental readings that will deal with the topic of reincarnation. But right now, I encourage people to kind of let it go and focus on what you can do and what empowers you and what you can affect, not what you cannot have an impact on. If reincarnation in the Eastern tradition, you have no say in it. In the way that we're looking at it, you have an impact of being able to say, I am going to advance. I'm going to be able to better myself. I'm going to be able to continue to contribute. And that's a willful decision, not a passive decision. And to me, the Church of Light is about making, if you will, willful decisions to act rather than to react. So to honor our time, we are at now 101 Pacific, 201 Mountain. And I want to be able to go through the closing ceremony and then get into question and answers. For those who cannot stay, I certainly understand it. And, I encourage you to ask additional questions, raise concerns, help us support you. because this is really about us supporting each other. It's not about any one person, place, or thing. It's really about our mutual contribution and our mutual benefit that we have the power then to give to others. So before we go to the closing ceremony, are there any thoughts or comments? And then we'll have a period of question and answer for those who can stay.
Ellen, there's a question in chat for you.
Oh, and I've been bad. I'm using two screens and I'm still not completely used to it yet. Okay, let's see if I can get my cursor over there. Then I got to get my bifocals. Oh, what do I mean by recycle? The Eastern tradition of reincarnation is that we come back in at the same existence level. There are traditions that you can fall back into lower beings, such as animals, but in the Hindu tradition particularly, it's that you would come back into this world as another human, maybe at a lower or higher strata in terms of socioeconomic, but that you come back again. And until you work through all the different aspects of errors and omissions that you've made and obtain what they call nirvana and be able to pass out of this cycle of life, or they call the wheel of life. So I hope that explains.
Thank you.
My view.
Alan?
Yes.
Jody McNamara says, I have a question regarding the final chapter, the ritual of Egyptian initiation.
Yes.
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just curious, Alan, what your thoughts are on the placement of that chapter. I mean, I find myself thinking back to it as I do a lot of the chapters, and I do go back to that book usually just for the like the keywords, like you were saying, and whatnot. But recently, as I progress through the books, I mean, I'm at book almost sort of book 11 now. I keep thinking back to that chapter, and
right.
I guess the way it's worded, obviously, is really to give you a visual picture of what, you know, the initiation experience would have been like for an initiate many years ago. So do you see any relevance to modern, like where we're at today as initiates, like how we could use that chapter going forward?
Well, you know, it's as you obtain the hermetician designation and you attend a conference, there is an initiatic ceremony. Is it as elaborate? Peg, I don't know if you've rented a pyramid, but there is actually an initiatic process and ceremony you go through. For those who may be engaged in Masonry or Rosicrucians or some of the others, not exactly the content, and Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you see is very similar processes and representations, a universal message.
Yes. And that goes true for all the organizations that practice the same initiatic rituals.
Yeah, you see a repeat in terms of themes, though maybe not exact processes. So Jody, why is it in book 2? I don't know. That's a question I've got as well. You know, I would have thought it would have been in book 1, but here he is in book 2. So it's something that I don't believe is directly referred back to again until we obtain the hermetician designation.
Can I say something about that?
Please.
The Egyptian initiation, I am fascinated by it, and I have read it several times. We tried to recreate a sort of tomb-like existence here at the church by using the stairs as each rung being an experience on the tarot cards. And, you know, it worked for a minute, and it was a really amazing thing that we did. And what we realized is that each rung or each card represents an experience in your life, and it is how you deal with it that causes your minerals to come together and become spiritual gold. So I think it is a very important part of our life. And, you know, substituting ancient pictures for new ones is really not hard to do.
No. And Jody, it's really interesting. And Neil, I don't know if you've seen this presentation. There is a Masonic presentation using the major arcana to represent the journey of a Mason, which parallels that whole process, almost identical.
I've not seen it. It's not come to St. Louis.
Oh, it is powerful. Kevin Day is the one who has presented it. He's a tarot master, and he's also within the Church of Light as well. So
Heard of him.
it is interesting that we see so many parallels between initiatic societies, particularly that are based upon the esoteric experiences and the Hermetic traditions. They're all there's variances, but still the themes are the same. So Jody, great question. All right. Any other questions? I see that there's a question for Vega.
Yes, and we're talking about study groups at this point. And, you know, we're trying to put together these Zoom classes and meetings and put things together. Right now, we don't have a follow-up question and answer specifically to Alan's class. But always remember, at the end of the Sunday service, we have a potluck with Mary Meg, who will do a wonderful answer any question you have. So there is a way for you to ask questions, but not specifically to just Alan's class. And we will be doing a buddy system here soon. We'd also like to set up a Zoom class that would be just for that. And hopefully we'll get some volunteers to teach that or be the mentors
Facilitators.
for that.
Yeah.
Facilitators, yeah.
And the next service is when, Vega?
Tomorrow.
Yes.
It is November 15th. It's at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So please, everyone, come, join. It's wonderful. And you get a chance to see what a service is like from a different viewpoint.
Right. Okay. Any other thoughts before we go to the closing ceremony, and then we can have a few minutes of question and answers afterwards? Okay, hearing none. Vega?
All right. So at this point, if you would please mute yourselves. Eternal brothers and sisters, we are now about to close the Church of Light meeting in the customary manner, and in so doing, let us consider seriously the kind of life it is fitting a brother and a sister of the light should live. We must each leave this meeting to go about our daily duties, but unless we take with us some higher thought and nobler purpose, we have spent our time here in vain. For knowledge lacking goodness leads to naught but self-undoing. Each brother and sister has pledged himself or herself to put forth an effort to alleviate physical and mental suffering, to dispel ignorance, and to spread truth. Therefore, even as we would be helped by those of our religion who are more enlightened, let us make every effort to assist others, and let each so conduct himself or herself as to be an example of moral purity, radiating life, light, and love upon the world of their endeavors. As has been the custom for eons past, let us arise and face the west, wherein at the close of day the solar orb softly sinks to rest and relinquishes his sovereignty to his heavenly consort. And let us bear in mind that even as the orb of night reflects the glory of the sun, when darkness would shroud the earth, so should each earnest brother and sister reflect the radiance of our teachings, even amidst the darkness of ignorance, lighting somewhat the most obscure as well as the more luminous paths which they are forced to tread. The lunar mother is symbolized in the minds of our ancient brethren as sustaining nature, upon whose breast we lean, and from whom we draw such experiences as nourish and expand our immortal soul. Let us now make the symbol of the religion of the stars. We stand to indicate active volition, with right hand raised to heaven in aspiration to science, wisdom, and power, and the left hand pointing to earth, signifying the desire to reflect the divine will and evincing an unconquerable determination to dominate all acts of life by the Spirit. You may lower your hands and I will pronounce the benediction. O thou eternal Spirit, in whom we live, move, breathe, and have our being, dismiss us now with thy blessings, and as we travel along our several ways, let ministers of thine guard our footsteps and light our pathway, that we may not stumble in our blindness. From our hearts, we thank those who have assisted us in our researches, and now, as we depart, we consecrate our efforts to the cause of truth and beneficence. So shall it be. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to shut off this recording and we can begin our questions.